Hi everyone, welcome back to the show and a warmer welcome to you into the age of Instagram face. A time where you scroll on social media and find the perfect bodies, the perfect skin, fox eyes, pouty lips, different people with the same faces.
We all look the same now and no one's talking about it.
How did we go from everybody looking so deliciously unique and like themselves to this monolithic Instagram face?
There's this phenomenon called Instagram face where we're all slowly starting to look the same.
We've chatted a little in the past on social media and beauty standards, but today we find ourselves at a very interesting intersection between these two areas. Instagram face, as it's commonly referred to, was popularized by Gia Tolentino, I hope I'm saying her name right, in an article that she published through The New Yorker in 2019 titled The Age of Instagram Face. And 6 years since this article was published, I think we've seen some notable changes in this phenomena, but before we get into that, what is Instagram face? It's described as a specific aesthetic dominating social media. A young face with poreless skin and plump, high cheekbones, cat-like eyes, long lashes, a small nose, and full lips. A face that looks like it was made by a single cyborgian esthetician. I know that sounds a little bit intense, but essentially it's an accumulation of the most known figures, faces, celebrities, and influencers conforming to this one specific look, where they pretty much change the way their faces look either through cosmetic procedures or the use of filters. So as always, there's a few key players in this whole equation. One is Instagram and social media in general, public figures, and public opinion. So let's break this down, starting with public figures. I feel like there's a lot of reasons that can push someone to this point, especially if you are someone in the public eye and constantly in the spotlight, because there are certain people, certain audiences that take those circumstances as an invitation to comment on people's physical appearances and critique them even. I feel like that effect has been amplified through the introduction of social media. And it gives people the idea that they can say whatever they want while hiding behind their keyboard. Because if you really think about it, half the things people say online, they would never dare to speak such words in front of someone's face, much less a public figure. So to an extent, I can empathize and sort of imagine the difficulties and struggles that come with having to face this kind of criticism and critique from the general public, especially if you lack a sort of support system and the necessary means to help you navigate through dealing with something like that. But most often than not, there is a tendency to respond to the pressure of these comments by getting work done to either create or maintain a certain image in the public eye. And this then goes on to create a certain standard for beauty, because these are the faces we see everywhere, on the big screens, on the billboards, on fashion magazines, with your favorite makeup brands, you name it. Thus creating a beauty standard, a very unrealistic one at that. So for a long time, these public figures used to dismiss these claims that they had undergone any sort of cosmetic procedures, often writing them off as baseless rumors. So in doing this, they reinforced this belief that the beauty that they were able to attain or maintain in their physical appearance was purely natural, God-given genetics, making it seem effortlessly attainable, when in reality it really wasn't. But here we are in 2025 in a post-pandemic world, and influencers have joined the fray. Arguably, I think they're starting to have a greater impact on public opinion than your regular celebrity might. So the barriers that once made it hard to access the certain steps you needed to take to achieve this look, and the secrecy surrounding it, gradually started to disappear, as it was becoming more of a normal thing for people to get this kind of work done. And we've seen that pattern in all things over the years, whether it's education or technology and now cosmetic surgery. So what happened is, in effort to kind of build a genuine connection with their audiences, content creators started being more upfront about any cosmetic work that they had gotten done to change or enhance their physical appearance. So people kind of responded well to this and praised their honesty and transparency. So along with other coinciding social movements, this became a very normal thing. You will not see someone bat an eye over finding out that their favorite influencer either has gotten some work done or is extensively using filters in all their content. And honestly, I'd be fine if that's all it was. I mean, you're an adult, you can do whatever you want with your life. But the problem is, it doesn't stop there. It never does. Unfortunately, the ripple effect of this goes way further than personal choice, which brings us to the phenomena of everyone having the same face. And so enter in the role of Instagram and social media algorithms. So there's a creator on TikTok that articulates this really well.
Instagram didn't just change the way that we looked, it rewired what our brain wants. Every time you're scrolling on social media and you see a face that hits certain cues like perfect symmetry or, big lips, big eyes, your brain gets a little dopamine spike. Repetition equals validation. So the more your brain sees a face, the more your brain will build a shortcut. You know, this is important, this is beautiful, this is what I want to look like. That's how familiarity becomes a desire, even if that desire is hollow.
So, as she mentions in the video, the ability to rewire what our brain wants is a very interesting notion to me. As someone who studied media and communication, it has always fascinated me how the mass media has the power and ability to influence, alter, and affect public opinion, which is why news outlets, TV stations, and radio stations have had such an impact on the societies in the countries that they exist in. It's fascinating and horrifying at the same time. They can basically control what you give attention to. So where does the equivalent of this influence come in with a generation that no longer watches TV, no longer reads the newspaper, or listens to the radio? Now, public opinion is largely shaped by the type of content you engage with on social media and the way that these social media algorithms curate feeds based on your engagement to create a feed, essentially, that is just for you. Which is why it's so important to be intentional about the content we consume. What you consume feeds your mind and shapes your thoughts and opinions today, which is obviously applied to beauty standards and how we see ourselves as well. So the creator of this video that we just watched goes on to make a few more interesting points, and I think we should make note of that as well.
There used to be so much mystery and diversity to women. Faces were textured, asymmetrical, and expressive. But then somewhere between the 2010s, beauty shifted from individuality to industry. Instagram face wins because it hacks the algorithm's logic and your brain's biology. And I just feel like it has flattened women into carbon copies. Beauty isn't supposed to be boring and predictable. It doesn't beg for likes and approval. It simply just is.
Beauty doesn't beg for likes or approval, it simply just is. But unfortunately, social media works in direct contradiction to that fact. It has reduced beauty, uniqueness, and individuality into something boiled down to a number, likes, and a perfectly curated feed and aesthetic. Big-eyed, big-lipped, and tiny waist. Which isn't to say that if you fit this criteria that you're any less beautiful. Not at all. I'm just saying that if you don't, beauty isn't and shouldn't be just tied to one specific look, no matter how much we think or have been made to think that it is. Because the standard always seems to change. And it's wild to think that your face type can be something that goes in and out of style. I refuse to accept that reality. Which is why it's so essential that we have these conversations, that we talk about this stuff. Because honestly, it's the first time that we as a human race are dealing with these types of circumstances and having to experience this as a whole. Real beauty is on the inside, which I know sounds a little cliche, but this is how I see it. As always, in the Bible, Proverbs 31:30, which says, "Charm and grace are deceptive, and superficial beauty is vain. But a woman who fears the Lord, reverently worshipping, obeying, serving, and trusting Him with awe-filled respect, she shall be praised." Now, that could mean something different to you, but to me, it means that my value is sourced from something that goes beyond my physical appearance. That only comes to me through my walk with God. What you stand for, what you value, whatever that may be personally to you, that is what makes you beautiful and gives you value and worth in this life. Not whether if you fit into the physical criteria of whatever beauty standard seems to be trending at the time. So, in wrapping up this little video, I have some food for thought, because I also think it's really interesting to point out that these kind of unrealistic beauty standards can show up in different cultures in different ways. And they have their own versions and combinations of it. Like in Sri Lanka, how fairness is something that is equated to beauty and associated with it. And the lack thereof, the opposite, which is a whole conversation on it. So we've talked a little bit about it on this channel before. And so once again, seeing public figures, faces, celebrities also be able to live up to this look or meet this, whether that is naturally or otherwise, I don't know. It has pushed people to a point where they get injected with all sorts of things to lighten their skin. They use bleaching creams, fairness creams, you name it. And you can let me know if we have other standards, maybe in Sri Lanka or wherever you're from, that may be different to the rest of the world. So in this whole discussion, something that comes up a lot is the argument people make in saying, if it makes you feel better about yourself, in reference to like whitening creams or whatever and cosmetic surgeries. How is that different to, say, getting your hair colored or getting your nails done? You can maybe share what you think of that, because I think it is a really interesting point that has come up in this conversation. One that had me thinking for a long time as well. Because how far is too far? Where do you draw the line with this sort of thing? And ultimately, the conclusion that I was able to come to, and how I see it, is that I think there's a difference between self-distortion and self-expression. Hair, nails, fashion are kind of inanimate things that are meant to change over time with the social and political circumstances, the seasons, and the way people evolve with technology and the economies that they exist in. Your face is not. So when it comes to your hair, the clothes you wear, or the makeup you use, I think it is kind of a way of reflecting or expressing your personality through these things. And that can change over time as you yourself evolve as a human being. But it is a direct portrayal of your individuality as a person. It's what makes you different. And sure, maybe social media trends and whatever happens to be in at the time may influence that, and in moderation, I don't think that's a bad thing. It's also how we connect as social beings. But the thing is, Instagram face and this whole phenomena goes against that individuality. Because instead of trying to embrace what makes you unique, you are trying to fit into one specific beauty standard, one mold. And that's exactly why people are starting to look the same. So ultimately, what you do with that is up to you. I just think that it's important to realize that these beauty standards that have been established are often very unrealistic and extremely distorted. And with a new generation being birthed into an era where they only know social media, who knows the kind of harmful effects that this could have the potential to create in the future. So it's something to think about based on your personal values. This is simply mine.